The soul's journey is one of the hardest things for a human to come to terms with. Its eternal nature allows it to seem reckless, constantly testing the limits of its own longitude and latitude, stretching the boundaries of its being, and seeking out the experiences that will launch it into lower depths and greater heights. Its most impactful interactions are played out through soul contracts. So today I'm going to be explaining what a soul contract is, the different kinds of soul contracts we make, and at the end of this video, I will tell you how you know a soul contract has ended. Soul contracts are agreements that we made with other souls before and during this physical incarnation, in order to provoke us in some way into higher states of consciousness. No matter how small or large of a role the agreement plays in our lives, soul contracts ultimately all have the same purpose and end goal, which is to liberate the being from the karmic wheel. Soul contracts all have this specific purpose built into them, even if they don't look like they do at face value. However, the face value of these agreements are still very important. They are the yarn with which we weave the plot of our life's tapestry with. There are soul contracts we make with others that are intentionally ill-fated, and some that are a source of constant and ongoing support along our journey. Some contracts are made to trigger us into awakening. Some escort us into a deeper level of self-love and acceptance. Some even violate our boundaries to such an extent that we have no choice but to stand up for ourselves in a manner that is unfamiliar and foreign. There are countless ways we engage with others through these contracts. Whatever the dynamic may be, they are all meant to elevate a being's consciousness so as to transcend the cycle of unconscious suffering known as the karmic wheel. Not every person is fully stuck on the karmic wheel. It's possible for a being to have aspects of themselves entrenched in karma and aspects of themselves completely off of the wheel. Soul contracts are how we close this gap between those two states. If you'd like to know more specifically about the karmic wheel and its connection to ascension, let me know in the comments and I'll make a video explaining this concept in depth. We won't ever know the exact terms and conditions for every single soul contract we have, and nor do we need to. And yet, it's not very hard to tell how many of these contracts has played their part in our own journey. And if a soul contract is not designed to provoke a person in some way along their evolutionary path, then that is actually not a soul contract at work in that scenario. That is a karmic debt. Soul contracts and karmic debts can often resemble each other. With a soul contract, however, there is always a higher purpose for that exact connection or experience, even if it's of a negative orientation. Whereas karma is strictly and wholly unconscious. Karma is what we are pulled toward but didn't choose. It chooses us. We are drawn into its gravitational pull and move through its many cycles, which is illustrated as a wheel. Karma is responding to our level of being. This is why the sleep state of consciousness cannot help but perpetuate suffering, because there is no way to be unconscious and to not inflict pain. This is also not in judgment of unconsciousness itself, since that serves a valuable purpose to creation. But when a being chooses to reverse the momentum of their own karma and move in the direction of consciousness, that's when the soul contracts come into play and provide the opportunities a being needs to deliver themselves from the cycle of suffering. So we always have the capability to learn from any circumstance, connection, or experience, regardless of whether it's karmic or a soul contract. But with soul contracts, they are intentional agreements with others who are meant to come into our life at a certain point to play a certain role, and vice versa. These connections can be mutually significant or impact one person more than the other. The quality of the experience during a soul contract is entirely dependent on what version of themselves each person involved in the soul contract is. For instance, a person may meet someone at a party and think they're weird, and that will affect the quality of that soul contract. Because even though that connection could have been made in order to open that person up to different expressions of being and broaden their horizons, contracts still carry a greater or a lesser potential, because these contracts are more of an outline to help us evolve and not a detailed layout of our life. We can fulfill a contract in its most bare and reduced form, but we can also have that same contract lead to a more in-depth comprehension and a deeper bond. It's our own free will and the other person's free will that determine the quality of our experience. And whatever remains unlearned in a contract that didn't reach its fullest outcome and highest potential is always able to come around again in a different form. We don't typically think of ourselves as dimensions, but we are. Each relationship we have with a person has an entirely unique chemistry that no other connection can replicate. We are a different version of ourselves with every single person we know, and not because we are being fake or inconsistent, but because our dimensions merge with another in a way that cannot produce the same exact results. So soul contracts are less about who you're going to marry and come more commonly in the form of connections around us, because our unique chemistry with different people will allow us to grow in particular ways. Which is why the deepest meaning of a friend is that you like the reflection of yourself that you see through their dimension. How you know you're in a soul contract is when you feel highly drawn to the person in a manner that may not always be understood. There's a high level of je ne sais quoi that happens in these connections, where we know there's something valuable to be gained from the person, even if we can't pinpoint what that is. Soul contracts can often feel sensual, even when they are platonic. This is because we are attracted to our soul contracts, and the sensation of attraction holds a strong charge within it that can be translated as captivating. And it would need to feel captivating in order for it to have significance in our life. So soul contracts come in all sizes. They aren't always meant to play a large role in our lives. They can be brief yet pivotal. Some soul contracts can be more meaningful and profound than others. Some contracts will take the shape of people who only know how to be there for you when you're on a winning streak. And some contracts will take the shape of people who only know how to be there for you when you're on a losing streak. So there's even soul contracts we make to help us through the highs and lows of life. Some of us made soul contracts with the people who we call our parents because they would either hinder us and help us in some way that is crucial for our growth. And because negative experiences create internal friction within our consciousness, they have the potential to accelerate a being's awakening. That's why so many soul contracts we make are of an unsavory nature. It's to provide us with the raw experiences we need in order to quicken our spiritual awakenings. Some soul contracts are inherently mysterious because of the nature of the contract. Like in the case for many starseeds here on Earth who made contracts in one form or another to get themselves into quite a tricky dilemma so that they can bring their frequency into certain portions of reality. If that sounded too cryptic, it was supposed to. There's a lot of information that needs to be withheld from us, or we wouldn't consciously enter into some of the experiences if we knew exactly what we were getting ourselves into. To some extent, we have to go into these forms of soul contracts blind and completely open to it. Otherwise, we would have completely sidestepped the whole experience altogether. So we have so much more going on regarding soul contracts than just meeting a soulmate. We can even have soul contracts outside of the third dimensional arena, as some of us have contracts in place to heal extra-dimensional lineages through our own healing journey here on Earth. Although these sacred agreements are made on a soul level, they change as we change. They fluctuate with the rhythm of our life. So there is no such thing as being bound by a soul contract. They are supposed to be beneficial. So even if you made one that is not pleasant, in order to experience something that is not pleasant, that still doesn't require you to stay in an unpleasant situation. It is fulfilled by the very act. How you know a soul contract is over is if you don't want to be in that connection anymore. So there's no reason to seek out how to break a soul contract because we aren't bound by them. The moment a person believes they are bound to a connection, they are actually in a karmic bond and not a soul contract. The energy of addiction is a lot stronger in a karmic bond, so the different ways a person justifies staying in that connection often reflect that. One of the ways a person can justify staying in a karmic bond is by convincing themselves that they are fulfilling a soul contract and that it's not over. That's simply not true. It's over when you say it's over. Anything else is superstition. In fact, the way that you can tell if a soul contract has ended is you won't even be drawn to that connection anymore. The person, the lessons, the understanding that was needed will have a sense of being fulfilled. Soul contracts don't even need to end bad in order to feel a sense of it being fulfilled. Because every situation is different, the way that each soul contract ends will also take on its own tone. Whether you feel at peace, content, sad, relieved, no matter what. How you will be able to tell whether or not a contract has ended is when you are not feeling drawn to that situation anymore, and there's nothing in it that you feel you need. I hope this has brought lower depths and greater heights to your soul's journey. Make sure to subscribe to my channel for higher dimensional guidance through spiritual awakenings. See you next time.